On today's episode of Locked On Canadiens, Montreal sends Oliver Kapanen back to Sweden. Did they make the right decision?
You're Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to episode 1178 of Locked On Canadiens. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day and for subscribing wherever you get podcasts. Doing that supports the show and make sure you don't miss an episode. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. I am Ian Boisvert, also known as @MaybeAteen. I'm joined, as I always am, by the incomparable Laura Saba, also known as the Actor Stick. Laura, how are we feeling in the middle of this week?
Well, the Canadiens are playing the New Jersey Devils tomorrow. That is the only thing that's going on in the world that I'm willing to talk about.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think, we know what's going on, and this podcast will continue to be an escape not only for you guys, but for us as well. I think we are also owed that luxury. We have a lot to talk about today, despite it being an off day for the Montreal Canadiens. We have Kapanen being sent back to his Swedish team. The Rumour Round-Up makes its triumphant return. I'm going to try to make it a weekly segment because it was a request. People seem to enjoy it, which makes me very happy. So we would like to that gets 5 yeehaws, Laura. We did it. And then Laura touched on this in the last episode. There's an upcoming CBA negotiation that may have some impacts on the way that contracts are created. So lots coming up today. We'll get started with obviously the big Canadiens news of the day. Oliver Kapanen, after playing on the fourth line for what seems like 35 seconds, gets sent back to his Swedish team. Laura, were you surprised by the announcement?
No, I thought it would come earlier. We weren't seeing his ice time dramatically improve or be reduced. I think overall the fourth line as a whole was kind of treated that way. It's not really going to develop him, right? Like, he needs to be playing tougher minutes, bigger minutes, more minutes. He did a really good job last year. And so I think this is just a continuation of his development, because it's simply not benefiting him to be in the NHL right now. It's not a referendum on his play. It's simply what is the best for him in the near future. I think it's a good decision because he wasn't moving the needle either way. Again, it's mostly because he wasn't being played in a position where he could do so. Not a knock on his game at all. Whenever he had rough patches, the entire team was not doing well on the ice. So, I have no critiques about his game. Do you think that he will benefit from being there? Like, I don't think that this is any kind of referendum on him as a whole. It's just the Canadiens are either making space for something else, or they just realize that this is not optimal for his development. So I'm curious to see where the chips fall after that.
Yeah, to me, I completely agree with what you had said. It's not an indictment of him as a player. We got to remember he's 21 years old. This was his first time over in North America. And because he comes from a European team, he has that European out clause where he cannot go to Laval. I think Montreal would love nothing more than to send him to Laval, but he gets to go back to his team in Sweden, and he gets to hopefully play a pretty big role there. I mean, Montreal was giving him some opportunities. He played a little bit higher up in the lineup. He was playing on the second power play wave, but 12 games in, 4 points. Let's see, how much did he play last game? He played 7 minutes and 54 seconds, 10 shifts. So it's not really worth it to, continue to keep him here. It is impressive still that he made the team at all, right? Like, he was a guy that we came into camp and there was kind of a buzz around him. And it was sort of, I wonder if they'll force his hand, or if he will force their hand rather. And that's what he did. He had a great training camp, but the NHL season is a slog. It's difficult. It's better to find out now that he's not ready than keep him around. And then December rolls around where I think the season, that's like the meat of the season, right? Especially for the Canadiens. They go on that long road trip at the end of December every year. It makes sense to me that this was the time to do it. It does make me wonder if Raphael Harvey-, is closer to coming back than maybe the Canadiens have let on. He traveled with the team to Washington, I believe, and I think he's probably traveling with them now. I don't know. Is he still in a no contact jersey?
I
Um,
haven't checked the last couple of practices, to be honest.
yeah,
Mostly because the Canadians have not, have not inspired us to want to know what's going on there. So I don't know, but it does seem like, it feels like there's a buzz around that, right?
yeah, he is still in a non contact jersey, but he's been practicing a bunch, so we're hoping to see him sooner rather than later. And with Michael Pezzetta as the 13th forward, they don't feel like they have to do anything that they don't want to. They called up Lucas Condotta, which is you know, the Canadians are talking about they want a forward with bite, a forward with edge. That's the kind of player, right?
He's
Obviously, I
got
think,
teeth.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you have teeth. Get up here, put a jersey on. Yeah, I just think that that's, you know, um, a priority for them is getting that forward with bite, edge, whatever you guys want to call it. I don't think Pizzetta's that guy. Obviously, Condotta can try to be that guy. I wonder if Luke Tuck is that guy. Everything I've heard about Luke Tuck is that he's just kind of a monster to play against. Skill level is not probably there yet, but could he develop into that kind of player? And could he come up here and play that kind of role in a short period of time? We're talking like a week, play a couple games, and go back to Laval. Is
I'd
that
like
is
to
that a
see
player
it.
that's on your radar?
He had not been, but then when you brought it up, like literally the moment you saw his name, those of you on YouTube will notice that, like, I like it hits, right? Like it's
Yeah,
like it makes sense. And now that you mention it, I want to see it, right? I want them to give him that opportunity. Am I going to expect too much? No. He's somebody who's much further in his development than his name would suggest. But I do think that it's something that the Canadians should at least consider. And I want to see it. He might not be ready for the NHL, but that's fine. Like you're only talking a couple of games, a cup of coffee. Everybody gets a cup of coffee sometimes.
yeah,
In their like they have to grab that opportunity, right? The Canadians should give him that and see what he does.
yeah. Interestingly, it was not Joshua Waugh called up.
Which
Which
we all expected.
yeah, I think so. I think though that the Canadians realize that they cannot promise him a top 6 roster spot right now. So it's best for him to be in Laval playing that role. At the same time, we've tried Emil Heineman on the top line recently. Josh Anderson, that experiment just will not die. He tried that again. You're telling me you can't find a spot in the top 6 for Joshua? You can't just give him a shot for a couple games? That to me is a little surprising. Because again, this is a guy who played in Montreal last year most of the season. He ended up getting hurt, so he lost some time there. But it didn't seem like he was going to go back down to Laval for very long, but they're kind of content just letting him cook there. Is that the right move?
Honestly, I think for now, yes. Because again, it's the same thing with Kapanen, right? Like, what is the best for his development right now? And we saw a lot from him last season, but he struggled in the preseason. He didn't really give us anything to write home about. And not only that, it felt like he was taking a step back, right? Which could also be just recency bias and expectations. But I still think that the right move is to give him those heavy minutes and have him be the guy, or at least one of the guys, rather than bring him here and not have a consistent spot for him to develop.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you're right, and I think the Canadians are right in that assessment, right? Like I don't think they're making a mistake by leaving him there, despite what some tabloids will lead you to believe. Um, I do think it's interesting though that there is a spot on the second power play for him because Lucas Condotta is not going to play that because Oliver Kapanen is vacating that spot. That's not going to be Condotta. That's not going to be Pizzetta. Who gets that spot? It seems like that would have been prime Joshua. It would have been an opportunity to, okay, maybe you're playing on the third line, but we're giving you power play time. It's not a lot. It's usually anywhere from 45 seconds to 30 seconds. Like somewhere in that range is usually what the second unit gets. So it is still kind of surprising, even though I understand the justification for letting him cook in Laval because things are going well for him and Laval. Laval's off to an incredible start. So
Which we haven't
any
talked
parting
about, so
thoughts on
let's
that?
make some time to do that next week.
Yeah, as I said it, I realized we haven't talked about the Laval Rocket as much as we probably should because they're incredible to start the
Yeah.
season. So
Yeah.
we know we have some mailbag questions about Laval as well, so we'll hit on those before too long. But that's going to do it for the first segment. When we come back, we revisit Rumour Round-Up. There's everything in there from coaches resigning to acquiring Simon Natchez. Or Natchez? What's his name? Nemec. That's his name.
Martin.
Sorry.
Oh, Martin Natchez, Simon Nemeth.
Yeah, you got it. So one of those guys may come to Montreal, and we'll find out about that in the next segment. I love being in the middle of the action, whether that's taking a concert or enjoying a night at the ballpark. It's just more fun being there. The place where you can go to get to the events you want to see is Gametime. We're big fans of Gametime here, thanks to their all-in pricing. This is a setting in the app that you can toggle on, so Gametime tells you exactly how much you'll be paying to get in. No hidden fees. Plus, with their seat views, you know what kind of action you'll be able to see. And with their lowest price guarantee, you know you're getting the best deal for your tickets. It's for all these reasons that I went to Gametime to secure tickets to the Habs game against the Islanders last month. And even though the Canadiens didn't win, I got some great seats at an even better price and had a great night with my friends. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's game time. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Laura, we are back, and it's the triumphant return of one of my favorite segments that we have been doing since I got here, and that's Rumour Round-Up. A quick reminder for those who are maybe uninitiated. I go and I'll be honest, on my phone, if I swipe to the left from my home screen, it just suggests a bunch of stories to me. And most of them are the funniest trade rumors you've ever heard in your entire life. So that's where this segment was born from. We give them 2 ratings on a scale of 0 to 5 yeehaws. We give a rating for realism, how realistic we think a rumor is. And we give a rating for entertainment, how fun it is, how spicy it might be. So with that, let's get started. I have the first one legitimately made me laugh a little bit. Jean Perron predicts that Marty St. Louis will resign by Christmas. He says that Marty St. Louis will tell Kent Hughes that Pascal Vincent would do a better job and he would walk away from the Montreal Canadiens. Laura, what?
That is the perfect reaction to this. First of all, as we saw in Columbus, Pascal Vincent might not be ready for an NHL job again. For another NHL job. Like, I'm just going to be really honest. Like, I don't see Marty giving up. First of all, you're making, I don't know how many $1 million a year. I believe it's estimated to be in the $3 million range. Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, you're not walking away from that money, because if they fire you, they still owe you it. But if you leave, they don't owe you a single penny. You know, it would be, honestly, it would be just for practical reasons, it would not be a good idea. I'm trying to refrain from saying certain words. But at the same time, why would he resign? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, why? Like, he has a vision. He has an idea. We might not agree with the decisions that he makes in the in-game moments, but he's got it into his head that these players are going to get better at all of the little things that he thinks makes a complete hockey player. And he's not going to leave until he's done, or he gets fired, or he gets pushed out by, like, you know, they give him a promotion, a quote unquote promotion, move him to the front office, right?
Yeah, they kick him upstairs.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly like that. Those are the scenarios. He gets fired or they kick him upstairs. He's not walking away. Or if he's at the end of his contract, being like, all right, when the season is done, I'm gonna walk away. Like, we don't have to negotiate. I'm giving you notice so you can start looking for your next head coach. I just don't see it. Like, what, you know, and why would he be doing this? Because he doesn't think that he's a good enough coach. I mean, the entire market is like completely torn on this. Like, not like there are no two Habs fans that have the same opinion. Like, so for me, it's like he's not gonna. He said it himself. He literally said it to the media when he got questioned on something, and he said, "Why would I care about the opinions of people whose advice I would not be asking for?" Right?
Yeah.
Martin St. Louis is fine. If he's leaving, it might be for family reasons. That's the only thing where I see where he voluntarily leaves before his contract is up.
Yeah, this idea that Marty St. Louis would quit anything in his life has no basis in reality, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know how someone could formulate this thought and say, yeah, this is, people will believe this. It's like I said, the suggestions that Google sends me for articles is hilarious. So on a realism scale, this is a negative 100 out of 5 yeehaws.
Mm-hmm.
There's no world where Marty St. Louis quits for the reason that was said, that he thinks someone else will do it better, and that
And of
it's
all
not worth
people,
it.
Pascal Vincent,
Exactly. So
who again,
uh,
amazing AHL coach, not a good NHL coach, at least not yet.
yeah, entertainment wise, I gave it a 0.5 out of 5. It's spicy and it reads like a soap opera, but I just don't. Again, it's not all that fun because on it, you look at it for a second and you're like, oh, that's not happening.
Okay, but like, what if I really laughed hard?
Yeah, that's true.
Um,
You go.
I'm
I'm not
giving
going to
it
tell
more
you how to vote.
yeehaws. I'm giving it 4 out of 5 yeehaws just because I thought it was so funny.
Yeah,
The
those are
way it
both
was
valid responses.
formulated was funny, right? Like,
Yeah,
again,
for
like
sure.
if he's resigning, it's for family reasons, like, right? Like that's the only thing. And then to like suggest to the front office who they should hire, like that's not a Marty thing.
No, nope. We'll keep moving because we have a couple more of these. According to, well, so this one's interesting. Athlon Sports had an article that says the Canadiens have double-digit teams after Arber Xhekaj. They
Okay.
quote Darren Dreger, who said that should the Canadiens put him on the market, they would have double-digit teams interested. That didn't say that they have him on the market. It didn't say that they've gotten double-digit teams interested in him. That's another part of this Rumour Roundup segment that I want to nail home is information literacy, learning how to take media in and understanding that the headline is most of the time on these like aggregate websites is mostly wrong. So, take of
Sometimes
that
it's
what you
AI
will.
generated, right? So
Yeah. So I gave this one 2 different realism ratings. I have what Dreger said at 4 out of 5 because I think that could happen, right? I think the
mhm.
Canadiens would get interest in him. But what the article said is 0 out of 5 because they completely just missed the boat on what Dreger said.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I'm just thinking about the GM's group chat, right? Like, imagine Kent Hughes like wakes up one day and goes, "Arber Xhekaj might be available," and then just watches it. Like every GM wants a guy like Arber Xhekaj, right? Like we talk about it. Like there's a reason this market loves him, and there's also a shelf life on a player that's that physical. So now is
Yeah.
the time. If the Canadiens were to put him up in the near future, there would be a lot of interest. It makes sense. So realism scale, you know, I'm going to give it like a 5 out of 5 because I think it's 100%
Yeah.
accurate. Double digits is 10 teams. There's 32
Yeah.
teams in the NHL.
Entertainment, I gave it a 2 out of 5 because the Xhekaj trade would cause riots. It would be
Yeah.
legitimately fun to watch this fan
Yes.
base implode a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would give it, yeah.
All right. One more. We'll go through this one quick because I think it's the kind of silliest. The Canadiens should trade for Simon Nemec. BPM Sports had this. Simon Nemec has been benched in New Jersey since October 22nd. According to Marco Normandin, he is on the market. And according to Stefan Gonzalez, I would trade Reinbacher for him. Reinbacher plus is actually what he said. Realism, 0.5 out of 5. It could happen, I suppose, but it seems entirely unlikely that
No.
they would move him to anywhere, let alone Montreal.
Like this conversation's not happening. It's not. It's literally just that connection that he has with Slavkovsky and Mayshar.
Yeah, and I think it also helps that New Jersey's coming into town this week, or I should say Montreal's going into New Jersey, and they'll bring those headlines along with them. entertainment, I didn't even have a rating. I don't even think it's really that fun to just trade Reinbacher while he's injured, and we've never seen him play an
Plus,
extended period of time. Yeah,
Reinbacher
what's the
plus.
plus?
Yeah.
Dude, it's like it's Eller Tenorti plus all over again.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, this literally feels like someone being like, all right, I'm going to spin a wheel and see what sticks. So no, but I do like this segment. I'm very excited about this. Now
Yeah, I
that
like it a lot.
the rumors are starting to heat up.
Yeah. Yeah. The hot stove's cooking. It should be fun. All right.
Yeah.
But we do have to leave Rumour Round-Up there. We're going to hit a break. And when we come back, we are going to talk about some of the conversations that may be happening in the upcoming collective bargaining agreement negotiations. And we'll get into all that in just a minute. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. And that's one of the things I like most about Indeed, the confidence that you'll not only fill the position quickly, but that the candidates you are matched with will be high quality matches. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. All right, Laura, we are in the home stretch. This is something that you brought up in our last episode that we wanted to talk about some pending collective bargaining agreement thoughts. The current collective bargaining agreement expires in September of 2026. So there's still some time. We have another full season ahead of us before we have to worry about a lockout. And I really hope we are not talking about a lockout. But at that, even though we think it might be a pretty amicable negotiation, there's still some points on the board that the players want to get across and that maybe the GMs and owners want to get across as well. I want to start with the player asks. Emily Kaplan had a great article on ESPN, and the players only asked for a few things here. Shorter preseason. They saw Line and Drew Doughty go down with serious injuries in the preseason, and they kind of all went, yeah, we don't need to be playing 6 of these every year. So I feel rather vindicated because I always said that preseason's too long, and people argued, well, they'll get hurt in the regular season. Yeah, and the players know that, which is why they want to get to the regular season faster. So if they happen to get hurt, it's at least in season when it matters.
When it matters.
Yeah.
A 2-game preseason. That's what I think. 1 home game,
Yeah.
1 away game. That's it.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the players interviewed said they would take 84 games in the regular season if the preseason was shortened.
Yeah.
And
Which is something the NHL is trying to do as a money grab.
Yeah. And to the players' credit, they also want to do that because it's more revenue. So they're not, if you remember back to the 2012 lockout, where one of the main sticking points was the percentage of hockey related revenue that the players received. The owners got a great deal in that. They get a really big slice of that pie. The players are trying to not argue over the percentage points of that pie, and they just want to make the pie bigger so that their percentage is still more, even though it's the same number. So that's why some players are saying we need to expand to 84 games because it'll bring in X amount of more dollars. Some players disagree because obviously more games equals more chance for injury, like we just talked about with preseason games. From a fan perspective, 82 is already too many. From a quality of the product standpoint, 84 wouldn't be a huge deal. I would be in favor of adding more games to the regular season if it means we get more divisional games and we don't play the Minnesota Wild twice or 3 or 4 times. Like if those extra games are nonsense, I'm out. But if it means
we have the year back where we beat the Bruins 8 times?
Yes, exactly. Like the 2007-8 era where we were getting 8 games against our division rivals. That stuff ruled. And the NHL just decided to go against that because they want every team to play every team, so that the Montreals, when they show up in Minnesota, they can charge more at Minnesota for that game.
Yeah.
So there's a reason for it, but it's never been fun. I've never enjoyed that aspect of it.
I think it's really funny that there have been 3 hosts of this show, and we all view the Minnesota Wild in the exact same way.
Just a footnote in the history of the NHL. They're doing really well this year. I can't wait to see them make the playoffs and lose in the first round. It's the
They
way
also had
that
a
they
great
do.
attendance record for like 20 years or something.
Yeah,
So,
it's not a bad hockey town. It's a poorly run hockey team. That's I mean, Wild fans would say that. That's not anything we're breaking new ground on. The players also would like to return to the 1v8 playoff format, which, yes, please. I want to be done with this division bracket that gets built every year. 1 through 8. That's all I want. I want the top 2 teams to be guaranteed home ice. The top 2 team, the top team of each division in each conference, and then the rest of you play for that seeding. Because the system now, it's bad. I don't like it. I've never liked it, because you could win your division in the current standings and play a team in the wild card that came from the other division that's better than any of the teams below you in your own division. It's possible.
yeah.
You're not rewarded for winning more games. Where do you stand on the 1v8?
So I prefer it to the current format. And I know the current format was created to intensify rivalries. But what I'm finding is that it's burning people out on those rivalries as opposed to intensifying them. Like the first couple of years, it was fun, and then you're like, nope, I'm sick of seeing the same teams play each other from an outside viewer standpoint or from an invested fan standpoint. It feels like, so the 1v8, there's an element of mystery. There's there's an element of like really wild things happening, which I really, really like, and the last time you think of upsets and things like that, like playoff runs that we've enjoyed from the Habs, like the 1v8 has brought a lot of joy to us.
Yeah, I miss it a lot. It's I don't know. There's just something nicer about seeing that 1v8. And there's more, I feel anyway, there's more juice to an 8 seed beating a 1 seed than there is of a wild card beating a 1 seed. It's just, if 1v8 just seems better from an optics standpoint, which I know is a very silly way of doing this, but what other way are you going to do this? The NHL said they're not doing play-in games. They don't have a ton of interest in that. So got to find a way to make the playoffs more interesting, in my opinion. Going on to what the GMs may want, one general manager told Pierre LeBrun that they recommend to revisit the term limits on contracts. For those who may not be aware, if you are signing a player that is currently under contract on your team, you can offer an 8-year extension. Anybody else coming in, you can give a 7-year extension. If you trade for them, you cannot sign them to an 8-year extension, I think, in the first year or until January 1st of the year you acquired them. That's why, like when Matthew Tkachuk went from Calgary to Florida, it was a sign and trade. Calgary signed the 8 years and kicked him over to Florida. What are your he was very cryptic about what he meant as far as
like, do they want it to be lower? Do they want it to be higher? I'm
I would
pretty sure
imagine they want it to
higher.
be lower. You think they want more years? I think they want fewer.
So that they can get away with like front loading contracts again.
Well, and they didn't want to front load contracts anymore. I pulled up the sticking points of the 2012 lockout. In the first offer the owners sent to the players, they wanted a max term on new contracts to be 4 years. They wanted to eliminate signing bonuses and eliminate front loading of contracts. They wanted to extend the entry-level contract from 3 years to 5 years, and they wanted to extend UFA qualification from 7 years to 10 years. They wanted players
that
to
is
just
a terrible deal.
Terrible. And that's why we missed games that year, is because the owners came to the table in bad faith, and it showed. They still ended up with a great deal because NHLPA leadership under Donald Fear was lacking. It was not a union. I still have my gripes with it, but anyway, do you think we're headed for a lockout? Is it too early to say?
I don't think we are. There's too much money at stake. I think, both sides are going to come to an agreement, but it's going to be in such a way that like both sides are going to have to make major concessions.
Agreed. All right, we got to hit our trivia and then get out of here. We're already at the end of our episode.
Yes.
I'll remind us of yesterday's question. Name the guy. Boston, Tampa, New Jersey, Montreal, San Jose, New Jersey? And the answer to that was one Jay Leach. That's a real sicko question from me. 7 games played in Montreal, no points, 7 penalty minutes. I believe one of the games that he was here, he wore one of the Centennial jerseys. I think it was the one with the green leaf on it. I always thought that was so funny that he was here for a heartbeat and he was wearing a Centennial jersey. And that's one of the jerseys that he has from this team. Very silly.
I love it though.
Yeah. All right. And you have today's question. So I'm going to throw it over to you.
So we are speaking of lockouts. So I want to ask if our listeners know, when is the last time Canada was entirely locked out of the NHL playoffs? So no Canadian teams in the Stanley Cup playoffs. What year? It's only happened once in the history of the NHL. So let me know what year it was. That's my question. And I'll throw it back to you, Ian.
I'm surprised it happened only once, to be honest. Canadian teams have been, pretty milquetoast for a while. So but
there's always at least one.
Yeah. Ottawa's got to get their stuff together. Anyway, that's going to do it for us on today's episode of Locked On Canadiens. Thanks so much for listening and for subscribing wherever you get podcasts. We're available free and every day wherever you get your podcasts and here on YouTube. So subscribe so you don't miss an episode. For your second listen, go hit Locked On Fantasy Hockey for Steal and Flip, giving you tips on how to win your league over. You can follow the show at @LO_Canadiens on Twitter, at Locked On Canadiens on Instagram, at LockedOnCanadiens@gmail.com. You can follow me at Maybe It's Ian. You can follow Laura at The Active Stick. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you tomorrow.